Guys, good Wednesday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk here on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you kindly for joining us. A crazy Wednesday morning, certainly for me. I think perhaps for one of our guests, and Valorie Easter, found out about 4 minutes before the program that one of our tenants had 3 cats in her office. Just had that conversation in the hallway. That's fantastic to know in an office building, but that's a topic for another day and something I will handle after this program. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Wednesdays we feature the fantastic Scott Morris of Ross Mortgage, and today we have friend of the program, serial entrepreneur and all-around A-plus people, Valorie Easter in studio. My friends, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us, Valorie. Yeah. Scott, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks, love being here. How's everybody doing?
We're doing well. Certainly going to talk rates with him.
Yeah.
We got an expert in the house. Before we talk some rates, how about a flip book on Val and an introduction for Val for everybody that's watching?
So, start off the day with the home inspection, which is always good in this market because it's just hard to find homes. And I have a bunch of short-term rentals. I sell real estate. I have 2 CBD businesses that one's golf specific, one is health centric. And so I'm here to kind of share my knowledge with everybody and talk business.
Recently engaged?
Getting married.
Oh, married.
On April 2nd.
Congratulations.
Oh, that is very close.
Yep,
yeah.
Close.
Very nicely done, Art. If you're watching the program, I'm sure you are. Also, 3 dogs.
3 dogs.
Some kids.
2 kids.
Some investment properties.
4 investment properties.
Very well-connected parents.
Yep. Everybody's in Florida. Everybody's left me, so.
Well, doesn't Jeff dabble here from time to time?
He'll be back in turkey season. Brings him back to Virginia.
Last time I saw your pops, it was on the pickleball courts at Greencroft. The very tall with long reach Jeff Easter.
Yeah.
All right, so a lot we want to cover here. Scott, why don't you jump in, and Val, please feel free to interrupt at any time you want here. Talk to us about what's going on over here. Rates are popping. We got Chair Powell trying to keep inflation in check. He's doing that at a time of a war. He's doing it at a time where inflation is out of control and everyone's terrified of potentially a recession on the horizon. I certainly am nervous about that. So, my friend, the show is yours. Where do you want to start here?
Well, I mean, so we've kind of been ringing this bell for a while. I've said that things would go up faster and higher than what they've predicted, and we're going up faster and higher than what anyone has predicted. And it's part of that because we came off such a big low. The government had its thumb on the scale to such a degree that when they took it off, we're seeing the reaction to that. And the question really is, how long does it last? How bad does it get? Where do we end up? And when you think about that, you've got to think, how long does the inflation continue? Because that's going to continue the exit out of bonds, which is going to affect mortgage rates, not so much what the Fed is doing specifically with their policy. Now, as the Fed increases the rate, if they go 6, 7, whatever they're going to end up doing this year, at some point you're going to see mortgage rates, they'll level off while the Fed is still moving, assuming that what the Fed is doing actually starts to work in relation to inflation. But with that said, once the Fed gets to a certain point and then how long it takes to get there, when are they going to, do they bring rates back down? Do they start buying bonds again? At what point do they create the R word, if that's what ends up happening, because generally it's created by Fed policy, and what does that timeline look like? And that's what I don't think anyone really has an answer for.
Val, the pulse you're hearing from clients and the folks you interact with, Richmond, Charlottesville, Crozet.
There's just no inventory, and what's happening is that anything that's even remotely affordable becomes unaffordable with the multiple offers. And we've actually we lucked out on a house recently because it
clients you're representing?
Clients I'm representing because it was listed at $350, and they were like, we're not even going to look at it because that is the top of their budget, and there's we can't bid up, so that's it. So it sat on the market for circle back through, and it said 10 days. It's been active. And I was like, what is going on? So I reached out to the agent. I said, do you have any offers? And he said, no. We said, I'm not even getting showings. And I don't understand because it's such a great property. And it was a great property. It is a great property. But I think that it was just in that price point where people assume that it's going to be bid up to 400 and some odd thousand. And so we kind of lucked out on that one. But it's just, I think that's the biggest strain, is just being able to find a house to move into. And people they're timid about putting their own home on the market because if it sells, when it sells, they don't know where they'll go.
Isn't that a wild problem to have, that it's that people aren't getting offers because clients have become so just shell-shocked at making attempt after attempt that where they're like, you know what, I can't deal with the disappointment of making another offer.
That's like paralysis of analysis.
Yeah, that's 100%.
How do you, and you obviously navigated that well with your clients.
And my client got their closing costs paid.
What?
So,
Did you hear that?
Yeah, which is completely unheard of. Like, completely unheard of.
So I'm getting that done, but it's all off-market, like, transactions.
Yeah.
It's like, when I hear something like that, I'm like, so you said that your neighbor wants to sell your house and you want to buy it? Well, I think we better get to work.
Yeah.
A lot of comments already coming in here, and we'll welcome some friends that are watching on LinkedIn with questions. We will get to these questions, including the one that I just asked off air. It's interesting that people we're gonna ask this. How quickly have you seen rates rise this fast? From Steven on LinkedIn for Scott Morris.
Steven on LinkedIn. I don't think anyone, or most anyone, has seen rates rise this fast in such a short amount of time. Since the last time anything close to it happened was like 1994.
But they're not that bad.
No, they're great.
Well, yeah. Let's qualify that.
I mean, you have to think, so when I bought my very first house, this was back in 2005.
Okay, mine was 2006. I was 6 1/8.
We were 5 3/4.
Yeah.
And I was a mortgage broker, so I got like the par,
So
you got the hookup.
Yeah. So it was.
The combination problem, though, isn't the fact that the rate itself isn't bad. It's the fact that we've seen a 20% increase in the value of houses.
Yeah.
So explain that.
It's a real. So if we were looking at the houses the 350 house that 24 months ago was 285, and we were seeing this rate, it'd be like, all right, this is not ideal. Actually, 24 months ago we were at this rate, at that 285 price, but now the same house is 350 versus being 285, and we're not done going up. I think
and your purchasing power is decreased because of the interest rates.
Yeah.
So, Chris Jensen, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the program. Giving you some props over here. We love you, KJ. Huge fans of you. Let's talk about the market and where you think things are going to go. Val, why don't we get you in the mix here? We are now at that back end of Q1, 8 days left in March in the first quarter. Do you think this in any way stabilizes, or are we going to predict more craziness?
I am hoping that it stabilizes. And I've already seen a couple more homes hit the market that are a little bit more affordable. But, talking to the home inspector this morning, they're starving for, everybody thinks that this is such a great market. And they're like, oh, realtors are doing so well. But there's no houses to sell. And there's no houses for home inspectors to inspect. And then people are buying houses with no inspection contingencies. So then they're having no homes to inspect. And what he kind of threw out there was that he's now kind of shifting his business model. So when you go look at a home, he'll walk through with you when you're looking at the properties to do inspections at that time. So there's like a rate for the day to go look at stuff should something come up.
Ray Cadell has highlighted that on the show, of Ray Cadell and Associates, where he's going to try to welcome an inspector to do like an eye test inspection and not the full inspection. That I find very intriguing.
Because it's major systems are the biggest money pits.
The roof,
come up. The roof,
foundation,
any termite damage or mold, because those are things that can get kind of costly. But yeah, I'm hoping that it will, with the rates going up, with just the lack of inventory, because people are worried that hopefully it'll kind of level out and the inventory will come back and we'll see prices kind of stabilize, because it is out of control. And everybody wants now the commissions cut. So all the commissions, and I know we're not supposed to talk about, commission stuff, but I've seen things come up that are like half on the MLS of what it used to be. So we're working more for less.
Put that in perspective here. And have you heard some of this as well, Scott?
A little bit. It's something that, I've talked about on the show and advocate against is, I don't know if this is coming from, so I certainly see where buy side is getting cut down, and then it's in a combination with where I talk about these Angie's List for realtors, where they go in and it's just another vampire. It's somebody else. It's not like they're doing it for free. They're going in, they're getting in touch with someone who wants to sell a home. They're taking a portion of it and then saying, okay, now we want you to do it for this. If you want this, here's what you have to, lower your standards for.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because everybody thinks that it's so easy. Right, selling real estate's really easy. You're making all this money and you're not doing anything. It's like I turn into Dr. Phil. I have to know all these different things and all of these legal parts that come on, all these contracts and things that protect people and happen behind the scenes that they just have no idea. And there's sometimes up to 6 different parties to a contract. From the home inspector, if there's an HOA, you have pest remediation, you have like all kinds of people that are involved, and it's not just this, really simple thing. And when you see for sale by owners or people that pay like a flat rate to put stuff into the MLS, and we as agents go into a transaction knowing that we're going to have to probably do both sides, and we're getting paid less than we would if we were just doing one side. And we're grateful, but it's still kind of like, come on, guys. Like, this is our livelihood.
Right. So we got Lee Vogler watching the program, 3-term city councilor in Danville, Virginia. Lee, hello and welcome to the program. We're excited to speak to you on Friday about your designated outdoor refreshment area, your DORA, which we're very much have been pushing here. That's Friday. So I want to get Scott in the mix.
I know they were doing that in Danville, but
They're doing it in Danville. They're planning for Albemarle, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Manassas, Scottsville.
I can see Manassas.
I'm trying to encourage the folks at City Hall to do this here on the downtown mall, which seems like a no freaking brainer.
I know. Don't they? I know in Stanton, starting in I think April, they shut down the whole on the weekend.
They did.
The whole, like Main Street. They're starting. I guess it's starting back up in.
That's correct. And they did parklets, where they're taking parking.
Parklets are huge in Culpeper.
This man loves parklets. You want to be a proponent of parklets here on the show?
The parklet thing is great. It adds seating for small businesses, and it opens up a little more traffic where you wouldn't normally get it. And if you're the city, why aren't you a proponent for something that's going to give you more revenue?
Amen. Thank you. Culpeper Community Spotlight.
So funny because there's so many times when that comes up, but the city does everything they can to squash it.
Yeah,
all the time.
They do, and I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody here, but how about we create an atmosphere that's pro-business for once? Let's do pro-business, dear God. Please, Charlottesville. So Lauren, welcome to the program. Nicholas Erpy, hello and welcome to the program. LinkedIn is popping right now. This is a question for Scott Morris here. Do you expect, we talked about this, so clearly other people are wondering about this as well. Do you expect the rates to eventually subsidize or go back down if inflation does get in check? A follow-up from Steven on LinkedIn. That's tough because he's basically asking you to see into the future.
Well, then, I've said so. Yes, they're going to go back down, but it's about the timeline of when and how far. Because do they get back to where they are now? Because how high are they actually going to go? And this, how long does the inflation last? How long do people continue to really exit bonds, drive that yield up, and then when the government steps back, they're not going to go back in until the government does something to tip the scale again, and they're going to have to go too far to come back in this direction. And it's a matter of, I've said on the show before that typically if you look at your U.S. 10-year, double that, and you get your 30-year fixed mortgage. But what happens is as we go up, that starts to change. It's not quite a double. It becomes less and less the higher we get. So when we're at, does the U.S. 10-year get to 3.5? Does that mean that we're going to be at 7% in a 30-year fix? Probably not. We'll probably be closer to 6% if that's the case. But there's how do we get that high? And if we get to that high, are we going to come back down? Yeah, absolutely. We'll be refinancing people, and people will be cheering again. But what's that? What does that timeline look like? And that's what I don't have an answer for, because we don't know how long inflation is going to continue and how much Fed policy it's going to take to actually affect it.
And it all, you have to think, like, it all happens gradually then suddenly, right? So it's like a train starting up. Like, it takes a long time to get that train going, but then once the train's going, like, it takes a long time to make it stop. And so, but at some point it's going so fast that it's like, oh crap, like we got to throw everything at it to get it to stop. And that's what we see a lot with the markets and the rates. And
when bonds move, they move fast.
Yep.
Are you advising clients that are getting concerned that look at these numbers, they're still ridiculously approachable and affordable?
Yeah.
I mean, are you having that? You guys are having those conversations?
So the conversations I've had have to do with people who are already, we were struggling to qualify at low rates. That's where it's tough because they're getting, it's a 1-2 punch with not only the rates going up, but it's forecast that property values are going to continue. We haven't seen that peak yet. We're gonna get through at a minimum this spring fall market, and property values are going to continue to increase. They won't stabilize probably until late this year, early next year. And if that's the case, certain people in certain price points are going to lose their purchasing power. So that's...
And kind of explain, because I try to explain this to clients like HOAs, right? Mm-hmm. So I try to tell them, what is it, like $50 in HOA payment is about like $10,000 in purchasing power.
That's roughly correct, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have like a $300 a month HOA, it's going to pull down your purchasing power. And just making sure, like with the total, debt to income ratios and the affordability of it. And the problem in Charlottesville is that our HOAs, some of them are super high and they don't give you anything.
Yeah, what's a good example of that? Is it Walker Square on West Main? Those HOAs are astronomical. Now, they do have a pool, but besides that, the amenities are quite limited.
And it's like you can hear everything.
You can hear everything. I believe Belmont Lofts are quite high.
Monticello Overlook?
Monticello Overlook is another example. Mm-hmm. Lewis and Clark, the Lewis and Clark building here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. I mean, I guess the amenities is being downtown. That's the amenity there. But you're not like, it's not doorman, it's not like pool and stuff like that.
I've always looked at that building as, and I'm sure
it's a pretty dope building.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
There's a curb like on the back, and I think there's 2 spots and they say Easter on it, and I have no clue which Easter.
Is that your Easter family?
I don't think so.
It's okay, it's not your Easter. Finish your thought over there, Scott Morris.
So it's always been an amazing location. Like, yeah. So
I mean, it overlooks the mall. It's like the first building you see coming down West Main.
Absolutely.
And it makes a statement.
Yeah.
And the spots have great views. If it was single Jerry, I think he would be eyeing that building right there. But it's married Jerry with son and a wonderful wife. All right, so we should talk about this. We got questions are coming in fast and furious here. She's got quite a following of folks in this community. This is from the man we have dubbed the King of Greenwood. Wow. Kevin Higgins routinely comments on the show. Kevin, we love your comments here. So both of you guys can offer perspective here. Any sense on current homeowners with adjustable rate mortgages and how that may impact future homes coming on the market? Is data available that suggests owners may have to sell because they no longer can afford their mortgage from rising rates? This was an issue in 2008. Could this be an issue now? In addition, paying higher taxes on their homes, cars, insurance, inflation, everything else that goes with it. So, Scott, why don't you start with Higgins, King of Greenwood's question?
So for the past 3 years, I've strongly advised, why with rates this low, why do you want to get into an ARM? Like, it's only going to adjust up. Like, is this so? How many of them are actually out there? I know that there's probably some doctor loans that were written, and maybe a variety of others. But at the same time, a lot of those people, should they choose to, can refinance out, and they're going to probably be in a great position because they got a lot of equity. So even if they're taking a higher rate from where they're already at, they're losing the risk of the year-over-year increases after they've hit this probably 5-year mark that they're coming to.
Good take. Your thoughts on that, Val?
I think that the biggest, so not a lot of homeowners have the adjustable rates. Like I know that a lot of investors do. Like a lot of the commercial loans are adjustable rate, but those, luckily, I think they're like 10-year lockouts. So I don't think anything is going to be adjusting right now.
Will we see the ARM become a financing vehicle of the near future? I mean, the ARM soured a lot of folks 08, 09, 10. Is that still as popular?
So it may be once we get to what we see as, or what people maybe expect as a crescendo for these rising interest rates, it may be attractive again if we're looking at it potentially adjusting down over time versus adjusting up, and what those options might be, 2 years from now.
So my Florida house was an ARM. It was a 5-year ARM, and it was the 575, and it adjusted down to 2.875.
Wow.
So I got the good adjustment with that. But I think, and it was, my first home, and the rates were lower because it was an ARM, and so I think that that's why, people do go that route. And if they know that it's like a temporary, so they have like a job, they're only going to be there for 3 years or 5 years, then you might see the popularity of the ARM come into play. But I just think it's still a great product. It's just not a good long-term product. So if you know you're going to be staying in the home, raising your family there, or wanting to be there long-term, it's probably a good idea to refinance now and get things locked in before things start going up, because it will adjust. I mean, it'll adjust. What is it, 1 3/4, or it just depends on what your program is?
It depends on what your program is, but and yeah, there's a lot of options.
Kelsey says, is the ARM essentially the doctor loans you're talking about?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor loan. I just know of a couple. I know of the few that a couple. Like, I don't think rates have been so low. Like it's something that
you haven't had to do it.
I advise against it. Like,
yeah, right.
Why tell me the benefit that you see in doing this? And then most of the time that's the end of the conversation.
Good question right there, Kevin Higgins, and we'll get to the follow-up question here shortly. This is an interesting question for both of you guys with experience in this market. Jennifer says, can you guys speak to the Richmond market? I know Scott has said he does business there. Valorie, can you guys both offer perspective in the Richmond market and how it compares or contrasts to the Central Virginia market?
It's the same. I mean, the houses they're on the market for hours, days. It's not, there's
more inventory though, right?
More inventory because there's more people. There's exponentially more people. So there's definitely more opportunities. There's a lot of different neighborhoods. There's a lot. Richmond has a lot to offer, and as you spread out, you've got Goochland, you've got Manikin-Sabot, you've got Powhatan, Chesterfield, you've got South Chesterfield. Like, there's all these different areas. Hopewell is fairly inexpensive, so you've got a bunch of different areas that are more affordable,
and still be 20 minutes from town.
Yeah.
Town.
Scott,
you're a Powhatan.
The country boy just came out right there, and Scott, my buddy. So your experience in Richmond with applications and pushing loans through?
It's very, very active, but a lot of the same struggles depending on price points. So I've got, there's still people who go out and, disappointed that get that shell shock of not getting an offer across. But that's just what it is. It's still a very active area.
And what I always have told people, and this is in this market and other markets and bad markets, is that patience with a sense of urgency, right? So you have to be patient in this market, but you also have to stay on top of it. So you have to have that sense of urgency. But if you lose out on a house, like, I wholeheartedly believe there's a reason why you lost out on the house. and something better will come along that has better options, it's a better home, and then you'll say, you know what, I'm really glad that we didn't end up getting that house.
I tell people all the time, I promise there will be another the one.
Yeah, there will. And so just that's where you can't get discouraged, and it is that patience with a sense of urgency.
Kevin, who's just a fantastic viewer and listener of this show, just sent me 2 attachments through Facebook Messenger. And each attachment is showcasing the massive growth being planned for Waynesboro. He says, he literally, and we'll talk about this constantly, he's showing a brief rundown of the coming soon businesses in the city of Waynesboro. Tropical Smoothie Cafe expected in May in the Waynesboro Town Center. Ollie's Bargain Outlet expected in March, West Main Street and Lou DeWitt Boulevard. Popeye's Chicken expected this summer. Chipotle expected this summer. Delta Dental expected by summer. Sheetz expected by summer. City Fox's Wine Bar expected this summer. Burlington Coat Factory expected by fall. Another restaurant expected this summer in the former Tasty Freeze. A second restaurant in the former Ruby Tuesdays building expected this summer. Then he sent me a snapshot of Creekwood Village, a large development being created behind Martin's Market and Grand Furniture. 170 lots are being planned for the Creekwood Village subdivision. 170 rooftops.
Well, they just tore down, aren't they tearing down the JCPenney and Stanton, and they've got all of that commercial development coming in, and it's mixed use and apartments, and I think the only lone tenant that's still active is Belk over in Stanton right now.
Is that right? So Kevin Yancey is watching, another Kevin watching the program. Give us some insight of Stanton. The man knows Stanton inside and out. I mean, it is blowing up over there.
That's the church.
Tell us about that.
So I had a duplex in Charlottesville and sold it in February, and I'm doing a 1031 exchange, which I know we were going to talk about, it's really cool. So it was built in 1865. It was the very first African American church established after the Civil War, and housed the first African American choir. And I think in May they're doing a big ceremony and putting a plaque like out on the street for it. But the people that own it now, we actually close on next week, Tuesday, I think. And the current owners, they restored it. I mean, it is beautiful, like just perfect. It has the original bells. You can ring the bell in the bell tower. It's maybe
that's cool.
Yeah,
cool. That is
my
cool.
Kids go. I mean, you just
and you're going to be the owner.
Yeah. And so
that's dope.
We've got a special use permit for 2 units to be rented out. So we've got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths upstairs, and then 2 bedrooms and 1 bath on the first floor. And I've joined all of these Stanton groups and forums, and it's really cool to kind of watch how things are growing and how helpful everybody is. And like when a florist burned down and people offered up their space for the flowers because they didn't get burned, and just this great sense of community. And I do have to say it's not dissimilar as far as like that nosy portion where people always want to try to
get in your business.
I swear probably half a dozen people have called the city of Stanton, and they call me all the time. They're like, you're not using your church as an event space, right? And I'm like, no, it's a rental. And they're like, because somebody said that they thought they saw something, and I have to call you to make sure. The poor lady, she's called me like 3 times. I'm like, I'm still not using it as an event space. No, I'm not. And she's like, these people just keep calling, and I just have to do my job. So it's so you still have those same people that
are everywhere, busybodies. Yeah. Kevin says you are right. That is the Stanton Mall. Mm-hmm. Chris Jensen offering some perspective here that we'll get to. Scott, I want you to jump in. 1031s, mm-hmm. and how the footprint of real estate just continues to expand with landlocked Charlottesville and quickly escalating Albemarle County pricing people out.
Yeah. With those 2 things together, I mean, so 1031s, you've got 60 days to
identify some others.
Yeah, and then 180 days to close. It's got to be a like property, meaning I don't think that you could go and buy raw land.
You can buy 2 So you can buy multiples, but they have to like add up to at least the same or more of what you're selling your property for.
And I mean, it's a great investment tool to protect yourself from the tax man.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And a way to keep some tax exposure down, and certainly a vehicle of purchasing that is, would you say it's more of a sophisticated buyer that's utilizing 1031s?
I think that it takes just
little
a more
nuance.
Educated.
Yeah.
About
To
that.
know
not everybody knows.
Yeah, to know it's there, and someone who's someone who's operating as an investor who's going out there to protect their money from the government. I mean, that's really. Do you see it all the time? But you've also got to be able to, and this market might be a little tough in finding the property.
That's the problem.
To be able to close, which is part of this whole, part of what's driving some of this going over and above to lock it down and keep it moving. So how much money you're saving if you're stepping up, 20% over than maybe where you'd prefer to be.
Yeah, so this is important. Then you jump in. Kelsey's asking, can you do this for primary residences? No, you cannot. Primary residence, a 1031, also called a Starker exchange. This is investment property solely, but it can be investment property that's residential investment property and commercial residential investment property. And I'm learning also land to land, dirt to dirt. Okay. Yep. Didn't mean to interrupt. What was on your mind there?
Well, so with the residential, if you live in the property for 2 years, then for a single person, I think it's $250,000. You don't have to pay taxes on the profit.
And that's why you see a lot of builders build custom homes, move into those custom homes, stay there 2 years and a day, and then sell those custom homes to minimize that tax exposure.
Yes, and that's what I've done. I mean, I did that with the Richmond property. I did that with I didn't do it with the duplex. That's why it's the 1031 exchange. But I was going through how many times I've moved since 2013, and it was kind of upsetting, actually. I was like, wow, no wonder I never felt really settled. So it's like, I can't believe I've had that many addresses and changed my driver's license.
I have such an aversion to moving that, there's no way.
The Valorie I know likes organized chaos, though.
Yeah.
So I feel like the balls in the air is what you thrive on. We should talk. Go ahead.
I like just regular chaos.
Yeah. Well, I think that's called being a father, or a mother, or being a parent.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's what we're all in right here. Although she's a little further along than you and I are. Your kids are how old?
13 and 11.
Okay, so way further along than you and I are. I mean, mine's 4. He's got 3 under 5, right?
So I got 2 that will be 4 in June, and 1 that'll be 2 in August.
I pray for my friend Scott on most evenings and his wonderful orthodontist wife.
Yeah, I literally had a conversation with the twins last night, because the night before they were up until midnight, just partying in the room. I was like, dude, guys, you're not doing this tonight. I don't know what needs to happen, but we're going to bed.
Okay, when they're up until midnight, doesn't it just wreck the next day? Does it wreck them for your twins? Because my kid, when he's up that late, the next day, he's a terror. He's an absolute terror.
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. They're typically fine. You can just hear them screaming and laughing and crying or whatever's going on, tearing the room apart, whatever they're doing. I don't know.
Kevin says, Higgins, if Waynesboro was my first date, I would ask her to marry me.
I don't think those are bad. I have really started liking Waynesboro and Stanton, and for the affordability,
Stanton's amazing.
And for the affordability, I mean, it takes us 30 minutes from our house to get to the church, and that's not
and you're
bad.
Crozet, right?
So we're off Dickwood. We're a mile from the landfill, or 2 miles from the landfill. Okay. So we're, so we just run down to Sam Miller Road and jump over, and but it's, I started showing houses more and more over there because they're less expensive.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot more house or a lot more land for your money over there. And it's really not, it's a really charming, the restaurants and the breweries and the vineyards.
I don't look at Stanton much dissimilar from Culpeper from a aesthetics perspective. They look very similar.
Reminds me of like San Francisco going up and down the.
Yeah, but as far as like the churches and like a lot of the visual, I think they were developed. They came into their own around the same time, so they've got a lot of the same looks to them.
So, and this is where we normally highlight, because we rep the PEP on the show, Davis Street in Culpeper and
Maine.
Downtown Stanton.
Yeah.
Very similar, little corridors of restaurants and
both
bars.
Both have cool little toy stores.
Yep.
I think there's one in Stanton called Puffer Bellies, and then just nice restaurants. And it's all that brick, the look. You've got some of the same things that used to. The downtown mall still has some of it where you see the painted signage on the brick from 70 years ago, that sort of thing. So
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But what really cracks me up about Stanton is there's apparently this guy that has a souped up BMW, and he does these muffler competitions where he makes his muffler backfire.
Wow.
And I had no idea it was a thing. But I see in these message groups that it's like the muffler guy strikes again. And so apparently people think that it's gunshots happening in Stanton. And it's this guy with
he's
a
just
muffler.
he's trying to keep property values low.
Oh my gosh. But and people get so, they're like, he's got Maryland tags. Like somebody needs to pull him over, and he's friends with the cops.
we need the muffler guy in the city of Charlottesville, Scott Morris. Can we get him over here to keep the property values low?
We've got Fry Springs.
Yeah. Fry Springs Beach Club. Got a zinger right there. Scott Morris, that's a low blow over there to the beach club. Yancey, King of Waynesboro, says Augusta County is the second largest county land-wise in the state of Virginia, 629 plus square miles. Mm-hmm. So they have the land to develop. Mm-hmm. I think this is where we have to highlight a conversation we were having off air, where the supply chain of real estate is having to do more for less. Yeah. And highlighting Waynesboro, Augusta County, and literally the agents in the Charlottesville, Albemarle footprint having to go there to rep buyers and sellers talks more for less. Your business, my friend, is a little different than that because the ubiquitous nature of technology, very different than having to get in a SUV and drive families around.
We should compare our odometer.
Okay. We should do that. Do you want to offer any perspective, you guys, on this?
So, yes and no. I mean, I find that a lot of my energy comes from where I'm physically placing myself. So if I'm not spending some time in Richmond, Roanoke, or wherever, as many phone calls and Zoom and everything else I do, there's plenty of value there. But sitting down with people and truly developing relationships kind of makes a difference. So, and I'm here once a week. I'm Manassas. So I do definitely log some miles, but I'm not doing it in the same capacity of, all right, now let's go see 5 more homes.
Yeah, and like we were talking about before the show started, I have a friend that's been an agent for 19 years, and she said this market, she's done. Like, she's getting out.
She's piecing out.
She has driven so many miles. Her contracts, things just aren't getting accepted. She said their whole office over the entire weekend with all the agents, only one offer got accepted of the entire office. And she's like, I've got to, this is burning me out. And so she's switching into financial advising. So she's kind of pivoted.
That's a tough field too.
It's another tough field, but I was like, but she feels like she has enough contacts with her real estate database after almost 20 years that she can offer a lot of value to her Rolodex, her personal Rolodex. So
what do you think, Scott Morris?
I think that everyone makes decisions that are best for them. I don't know that I could advise on someone that I don't know in that capacity.
Are you seeing a lot of folks you're doing business with piecing out of the game?
I'm seeing in some they're not really message, but private groups and stuff like that, people having little meltdowns about, especially if a lot of their business was based off of refinance, hey, what are you guys doing to stay in front of realtors? It's like, oh, the same thing I was doing the entire time, staying in front of them. That's where true relationships are built. So
one of the things that I want to highlight that Scott is doing extremely well is the Culpeper Community Spotlight Facebook group. Please join the group. I've noticed you as a host in some of these videos are doing quite a great job over here, buddy. I mean,
thanks. I'm getting to be a little smoother with my interview.
I like the one in the was it the
I like it where I stare at the camera like a psychopath when I'm not talking. I'm trying to get away from that.
The wicker chairs, was it Wild Lines?
Yeah, Wild Lines Art Studio.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Thanks, man.
I mean, I thought it was great. I legitimately thought it was fantastic work right there. How about this for Valorie? What about Petersburg? People are asking about Petersburg
is really affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really affordable and it's growing. There's
people are literally asking on the show about Petersburg here. That just shows you the market conditions we're in.
There's some great investment properties in Petersburg. You're going to have a lot lower rent, but with people not being able to afford the houses, then you're going to get the tenants in there. It's Petersburg. It's historic. It's it has that neat little area where what is that big steakhouse? Is it the Capitol Grill or something that's right in Petersburg by the
I think there is a Capitol Grill. Off the top of my head I can't think of everything else that's out there. I know.
No, it's got pretty historic buildings. I saw like this giant it looked like the rotunda that was for sale in Petersburg. It's very deteriorated. But I want to say they wanted like $75,000 for it.
$75,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, well, it's going to cost $1 million to restore
rehab.
it.
Yeah.
But
okay. So that puts in perspective.
Yeah.
Lynn Refro Young giving you some props over there. I think she's watching in Bon Air, Virginia right now. Folks in Buckhead, Georgia, watching the program. Jamie Turner the man is amazing. He's the mayor of Gordonsville, now repping the PEP in Culpeper. He said the last time Valorie was on the show, she spoke about Airstreams as short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Has there been any more progress made on that?
Yes.
First off, when was the last time you were on the show? It was months ago.
Yeah.
So the fact that this guy remembers this, Jamie Turner, bravo. Phenomenal memory right there. Airstreams.
So we have the Airstream, but I think we're going to sell it. Just because we have it with a business partner, and it's.
I hope my wife is not watching this. She's going to be like, "Why does she?"
And it's just too.
Does your wife want an Airstream?
She loves it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting complicated with the business partner because it would go on a property that I have. So what we ended up doing was we got this tiny little A-frame that looks like a little bitty like Hobbit house, and we have it on Hip Camp, and it's rented all the time.
What is do you know what Hip Camp is?
I mean, I assumed it was Hippie Camp.
Is that what it is? So I assumed that's what it was as well. So I was hoping you were going to say that. Is it a Hippie Camp?
Hip Camp.
Okay, so it's cool camp.
Okay.
It's a cool camp.
So I've never heard of Hip Camp. Give us some perspective here.
So
have you heard of this?
Does it smell like patchouli?
It does not. It does not, actually. So we actually last summer sometimes it does.
Among
lots
other things.
Of weed. Lots of weed.
I can imagine. That's good. Okay.
So last summer we actually traveled. We drove from Charlottesville all the way out to Yellowstone, and we tent camped, and we used Hip Camp. So we stayed on people's property all the way across the country. We stayed at really interesting places, very cool places. We stayed in a corral at a ranch. We stayed at this guy named Uncle Harry or something, and it was kind of as creepy as you would think.
Okay.
But
Uncle Harry's property. Okay.
But it was
this sounds like a Rob Zombie. Like
it was cool.
Yeah.
He was like all into it, and he had this big projection screen, so anybody that was staying at the campsites could go watch. We watched like the Avengers or something, and in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and so we, through going through this, we have the A-frame.
This is you and Art.
and Zane, my son.
Okay.
And then my mom and my daughter flew out. And we picked them up in Bozeman, and then they went with us. We got another tent. We had it all strapped onto the roof of the car. We had 2 dogs with us.
Wow.
And we had no reservations at any campground.
This is a perfect segue for Scott to start talking about chickens and foxes and the problem he's had on his farm, which, again, people are asking for updates on the chicken and fox problem.
So saw a fox this morning, could not...
He's got chickens on his farm.
We have
and
the
foxes
quail.
are killing the chickens.
Yeah.
He's got a farm in Culpeper.
My daughter has made this trap for... She's trying to catch a raccoon because she wants to train our puppy to catch raccoons or hunt raccoons.
Okay.
And we have quail and pheasant. And I was like, Aubrey, you are attracting predators to the property to try to train a dog, which you're never going to go raccoon hunting. And I was like, this is...
Scott, you got something to say about this, Scott. Jump in here.
So just have her put a can of tuna in like one of the have a heart traps.
She did that.
I mean, I catch raccoons and possums. I actually so one of my wife's cousins, like, I had a video of me like releasing a raccoon, and he's like, dude, you got to get that down. You can't relocate wildlife in Virginia.
Yeah, you can't.
And I was what?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Apparently
it is
it's
true.
a thing.
I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh,
Neither did I.
Jerry, I got so angry. So when we lived in that house on Bellevue,
Like, the other option was to eliminate it, and I was like, what, I'm not going to make a video of that. I thought it was kind of funny, like, watching this little fat ass run away.
I'm just a very sheltered guy in eastern Albemarle County here, so I don't have these trials and tribulations that you guys have in the country, the deep country of Ivy here.
City. We were in
the
the city. We lived in the city. I'm sitting up, and I watched this guy with his son at the bottom of the hill, and he comes and he let out like 4 groundhogs. And I was like yelling. I was like, no! And he couldn't hear me because he was down the hill, and I was like, they came up and they made their home under our studio.
Ooh.
And so, I mean, I was like, this guy is coming and bringing these animals, and then we had another groundhog hole over here, another groundhog hole. Our lot was like as big as this room, and we had 4 groundhogs on it then. Because some guy...
Is that like your farm over there, Scott Morris?
No, I don't. The foxes eat all the groundhogs, I think, and coyotes, so I don't have that problem.
Oh, gosh. Bill McChenzie's watching the program. Wild Bill, I thought Hip Camp was a rehab place for old people recovering from hip replacement surgery.
It could be that, too.
Mustache Dan Pettit of Real Estate 3 watching the program right now. We love you, Dan Pettit, and that very compact backhand tennis swing that you have, my friend.
The Hip Camp thing kind of blows my mind because they pay $45 a night to stay in the A-frame. It has no power.
Think about this, right?
It has no toilet.
I could just go build one of these like
on your farm.
Yeah.
Seriously, does Culpeper? That would be an ADU, right? Is that an ADU?
I don't think
I mean, I've got it like that. There's already an ag permit to put up like a pole barn. I'm sure I could.
But it's not. You can pick it up with the trailer and just take it off. I don't think it needs anything.
Interesting. So is an ADU permanent? Okay, so you're saying because it's movable, it's not an ADU. Yeah. And you may have found a gray area for rental revenue streams here. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
But we did. So it has a mini split. So it actually, we put a power pole so you can bring your own generator. If you want power, you can bring your own generator. So it's got options.
We learned quite a bit on this show here.
Yeah, it has a queen size bed.
Though the wheels are moving over there. I see the wheels turning over here, Scott Morris. Kevin said, tell Scott to have Joe Daniel pay to get the foxes away from his chickens. Joe Daniel. Do you know Joe Daniel? Joe Daniel owns Culpeper Wood Preserve, Jefferson Home Builders. He's worth like $500 million. The other option is the Great Pyrenees. I've got friends who have them. Great Pyrenees? Yeah, they're. I don't know. Or the Anatolian Shepherds, but then you have to have 2. Yeah, which is the. I don't know. I could probably get away with just putting goats in like one of the pens, and that may solve my problem as it is. You get a donkey. There's really. I do. So I want mini donkeys. Get a mini donkey. There's a donkey rescue because the donkeys live forever. Is Mrs. Morris okay with mini donkeys? Yeah. She's there. Yeah, she's all whatever. Well, she's not taking care of it. She doesn't care. Okay. Yeah. Bill says, have Valorie read Where the Red Fern Grows.
Read it.
She won't want to go coon hunting after that.
I read that Little Dan and Ann or whatever the names were. I read that.
All right, so this question's coming up as we head back to real estate here. Can you give us some insight, either of you guys, Scott or Valorie, into rental markets that you guys are dabbling in and how they're performing?
The short term is awesome. I mean, it's. I have been very strategic with purchasing a new property every year, and that was my goal starting in 2018, because I knew there was going to be a time when I didn't feel like selling real estate anymore.
Yeah, grinding. Right.
And I wanted to, take a breath and, have passive income coming in. And so I got to the point, so last year, and we were talking about this before, my short-term rental income might have surpassed, it's pretty close to my real estate income. And
commissions from real estate sales.
Commissions from real estate sales, which I'm still making, 30 some odd home sales a year. So I'm
still doing 30 transactions a year.
Yeah, so there's still a lot. And it's only referral based. So I don't pay for marketing. I don't have my team anymore, so I don't pay all these expenses and admin. And so I keep a lot more.
I'd say 30 transactions is pretty bona fide.
Yeah.
Did you do 30 transactions in 2021?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been consistent. Because
Yeah.
my best year I did 100, and I could have.
Yeah, but you wanted to jump off a bridge.
Yes.
And Wasn't it like freaking brutal?
It was the year that my brother passed away, and so I just kind of like immersed, and I was going through a divorce, and so I just kind of immersed myself in work so I didn't have to think about anything. And I just, noticed the grindstone, and then after that year was over, it was like, what just happened?
Yeah, you lost a year of your life. You made bank, though. You made bank.
I did, and it was, I learned a lot. I had 100 signs at one time, and I had, I still have so many lock boxes that I don't know what I'm ever going to do with all of them. It's so heavy, I have to put them in 2 boxes to be able to even carry them.
Those things aren't cheap.
No. I probably have $10,000 in lock boxes.
That's what I was going to say. How much is a lock box? Do you know?
$100.
I have no idea.
$100.
$100 a box.
So, So I've really been, purposeful with that and I've gotten deals. Like the properties that I've bought have been, that patience with a sense of urgency and finding there's things that people don't like because and I've had to suck up and deal with some crap. Like that whole building that was built next to the Bellevue house and the fence that looked like crap and the dust from the guy drills into the side of the mountain. He's like, I didn't know there was rock there. It's like, what do you think a mountain is? It's like, come on. This is absurd. So all the cars on the whole street were covered in red mud. And so I've dealt with crap knowing that when it's done, things will be better. And then I sold it and, that's the 1031 exchange in the church and got my house that I live in now because nobody knew what to do with it. It was a 1970s log cabin that was incredibly antiquated, and it had good bones, but nobody knew what low ceilings, 7-foot ceilings. My father walked in and his hair touched the beams.
Former NC State football player.
Yeah, 6'7" tall. And so it's just kind of, what are you going to do? And it had 2 buildings on it because it was 2 separate parcels, but they shared a well, so they couldn't separate it. And we dug a new well, so they're separate.
This man can dig a well.
Our well is 550 feet deep.
That's pretty damn deep.
And 50 gallons per minute. Once they hit it.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah. That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Scott, anything you want to add to here? And we got a piece of property that folks want us to talk about.
I was going to, my question would have been, do you think there are still deals out there in the current environment?
I think so. I think it's the things that you just.
Do you really think so?
I do.
In the city, in the Albemarle County? Are you talking about?
On the market, not currently active. I think there's stuff out there.
We talked with Rachel Burns about this, who's in the house flipping game, and she said it's pretty brutal right now.
So there is a piece of property that my stepbrother put an offer on that's not listed. That is an amazing piece of property that you want to talk about those 2 that sold for $799.
Yeah.
Over off of Shamrock is a better property.
Those are back on the market.
No wonder.
Back on the market.
But the property that he put an offer on is a better property in a better location for exponentially less. So it's just finding people, because everybody's still selling, but they're not necessarily putting it on the open market. And I don't know why they wouldn't, because they're going to get more for it on the open market than if you do, pocket deals. But they're like, oh, but I'm saving my commission. It's like, but a commission may be, $15,000, but they may get you $50,000 or $70,000 more.
Well, the data is very much well documented that when you list with an agent, the likelihood of you earning a considerable higher price for your home is pretty well proven.
And I more than pay for myself.
That's what I'm saying.
In all situations.
Yeah,
so
and on top of that, it's a brutal process. As someone who's done FSBO, and as someone who's represented himself in deals for including my personal residence, it ain't no easy task.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the whole thing. Like when I have conversations with people who are either going to or thinking about, and I'm like, do you want me to get you in touch with somebody? Because do you really want to dive into what we're talking about? Like, and
showing, think of the showings.
Dude, I did 32 showings in like a day and a half. I literally couldn't work.
Yeah.
I couldn't do my job.
Yeah, and like what? Yeah.
And then the opportunity cost of not working.
My first question is, do you really know what you're committing yourself to?
Yeah, it's the only. I mean, I've had, with the commercial stuff that I've done, I had some experience with it. I would not wish that. One of my buddies asked me about this the other day. He said, should I go and do this myself? Dude, he goes, this is the first deal he's ever done. I'm like, do not do this if it's the first deal you've ever done. You're crazy to do this. It will cause marital friction if you do this. She'd fall in love in the property. He's a money guy. Like, everything's got to be price point and down to the cent. And she's like, oh, I see my baby's going here. I'm like, do not do this. Do not represent yourself on this at all. But I understand why some may want to do that, and because they see listings trading in a day, and they're like, oh, we could try to do it ourselves. But the likelihood of you doing it successfully is not there.
And I tell people, I said, money, renewable resource, time, not. So how much time are you, as a for sale by owner, willing to put into this process? Because you realize there's a lot more to it than just what you think because you watched HGTV.
Right. Chip and Joanna over here.
It's very different. So is your time, how much do you think your time is worth? Because, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't value themselves as high as they probably should.
Well said. That is so well said. So I'm going to put a listing on screen behind us through some Apple TV here. This is from Jamie, who's watching the program, and he says this could be right up your alley.
I love that house. I love it. I've driven through there.
Okay, so Jamie, she's driven through here.
Yeah,
and then the question is about financing as well from Scott.
Tim Carson's listing.
Tim Carson, right? Real Estate 3.
The houses are super cute. It's in Fluvanna County, so the short-term rental.
Right over the Keswick line, isn't it?
Right over. Yeah. I mean, you just drive right over. I've driven back through it. The houses are really cute. A couple of them have been updated.
Yeah.
There's a handful that haven't, but they're all rented long-term. But what I was thinking about for that is like business retreats. So you could have like whole companies come in and rent the spaces and do it on a short-term basis.
So guys, what I'm showing on screen here, and I would encourage anyone that is watching the program or listens to the show on demand in its podcast form to pull out their phones or their computers and type in this address, which you can find on Zillow. And Scott, the question is about financing for you on stuff like this. 128 Woods Lodge.
I'm cringing about an appraisal on it.
128 Woods Lodge Lane in Keswick, Virginia. Yeah. Interestingly, it is Fluvanna County, but obviously you're going to market it from a Keswick, Virginia.
Yeah. It'd be a commercial loan.
22947.
Yeah, it would almost have to be.
Yeah.
I don't see.
How many homes are on this?
I think there's 10 or 13.
Yeah.
I forget how many.
How could you do this, Scott? From a financing standpoint,
I mean,
the price point is the asking is $2,650,000. It has been on the market for some time, so I would imagine there's some wiggle room here on price. But Scott, jump in.
It looks like an appraisal nightmare. I mean, I don't know Exactly, because you're not going to find there's not another like property like it. So, I mean, I think you could definitely finance it with like a one-time 100% payment.
But they're spaced out.
All cash.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
The man basically just said it needs an all-cash buyer. I think that's what the joke was there.
Or you could get a commercial loan.
Or 1031.
Yeah.
I mean, the 1031 is going to be a pretty, I mean, I guess not substantial. There's a lot of 2 million plus 1031s out there.
But they're spread out, like they're pretty private. Because I was like, how is this laying? Because I looked at the plat online and I was trying to see how the home's laid out. But when I drove through it, they're really private and they're separated out nicely with trees and vegetation. And I was impressed with it. But I think it's priced too high. It's priced as if every single house has been redone like that.
Yeah, I mean, this one looks amazing.
And they haven't all been redone like that. So you're still going to be putting some more money into, like you probably put a mini split.
Yeah, I would say this is going to have to be commercial because whoever would be buying it, I mean, there's just so many, unless you and a group of friends pooled the cash and this was going to be your commune, I think it's definitely, it's like an awesome little...
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Airbnb style, little retreat. Or if you were going to do I don't know how many acre. What's the acreage?
30 some odd acres.
I mean, she knows the property well. Yeah. There you go.
I don't know if there's enough room to where if you wanted to do something like somebody who was going to then, and again, we're probably back to commercial, like a camp friendship style, just something of those type of, which is also in Fluvanna.
I mean, there's right there a good. So I went with the Apple TV on my Mac here instead of my phone. So we have a bigger snapshot on studio. Judah, if you, I know this is putting you on the spot. It's 128 Woods Lodge Lane, WOODSLODGE Lane. If you can pull up some of the photos from Zillow and put it on screen for the folks that are watching on social.
There's so much potential with that property because.
I mean, you got a hell of a lot of rental streams here.
And I'm not completely positive that down the road that those couldn't be split into individual lots because it would be a shared road, but if you actually did a development with it, because there's so much space that you could have good sized lots with each property, then you could sell each one off individually. But we're watching that show We Crashed, which is about the WeWork and the whole crowd.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that where maybe a whole a bunch of families go in and have some sort of
a family commune
living. Yeah, because there's so much space where you could put a big event space.
All the way. This is right at the county line of Fluvanna. Okay.
So this is where Keswick becomes Fluvanna.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Louisa's got a touch out there too, I would think.
I mean, you're talking about let me ask you this question, Scott. This is genuinely for me. Would financing ever consider subdivision potential down the road when doing the financing?
So with this, the biggest problem is there's so many, all these units on there. You're not going to find another property that you're going to be able to go and compare this to and say, all right, hey, look, it's got 10 properties. Where's your comparable? Where are your comps at? That's going to be the biggest struggle here.
What would be a comparable to something like this?
And it's going to go jumbo. I don't think it exists. I think you're going to, this is some sort of commercial loan.
It's a unicorn.
Yeah.
So 2,650,000.
I mean, the debt coverage is almost there.
With the rents that are in place now.
Rents, yeah. But it's still a little bit
That
high.
makes it a tough investment when you're going, the debt coverage is almost there.
Well, that's because the price is that's why it hasn't sold.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's priced too high. I'm sure, I know Tim. I'm sure Tim has offered that advice. I mean, it's been on the market for a substantial period of time.
But the other side of it is that Tim can't show it all the time. So, when he's able to get everybody to get out of the house, of all those houses, you can't get people in.
Here's a great property example of you're going to see a shift as rates climb, that number becomes less and less realistic.
As rates climb, prices are going to go down because purchasing power is subsidized.
100%.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and if we're talking like right now, the debt service is almost there, and then the
delta expands.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, well, prove me I see what you want for it, but show me your value.
Good stuff right here. A lot of questions are coming in about this here. Do you guys think this is a teardown? I don't think this would be a teardown.
I think that they're all workable and they're all solid little houses. And, kind of what I've learned with the short-term rental part, because I know you were talking about the Outer Banks and you wish that you got a bigger house.
Scott's got a rental in the Outer Banks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can we talk about that, right? Yeah. We talk about that? Yeah.
Because you wanted a bigger house because you can get multiple families in and then the rents are bigger. But the flip side of it is that if you look on like AirDNA, for like the perfect example was the church building. The 3-bedroom, 2-bath they had the projections as less than the 2-bedroom, 1-bath because there's more smaller groups that are going to rent it more than the bigger groups. So like you'll have more bookings, I guess.
I see you want to jump in here on this.
I mean,
but it's not the beach.
So the beach is you get multiple families that travel together. And while you can still do that at my house at 5-bedroom, 4-bath, it's these 8 bedrooms that really start to like crack that. Huge numbers. And talking to Trisha Midget, who's like a monster on the island, she's like, we never run into a problem where people. It's not like they don't rent; they just rent for less. Yeah. So that becomes what maybe why I wish I'd gone bigger, but at the same time I'm super happy with because at the end of the day, like if I didn't have to rent it, I wouldn't, and I don't have to now. But like I'm not there all the time, so like why not? Take advantage of that?
And you are there more than most.
Yeah,
that have vacation homes.
Yeah,
you said once
about a week
a month, right?
Yeah, during like from here to September. If I'm not, my wife is.
Can you offer perspective on financing for vacation properties for those that are watching? You do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, second home rates took a hit. The government adjusted because I think there's going to be some correction there, and we've already seen some correction. And hopefully that also goes to impact some of the people who were purchasing them as to turn into Airbnbs or investment properties, and really not be in them, especially in an area like Charlottesville where we're already facing such an inventory shortage, where it's it's an enticing place to be, and we were seeing quite a bit of that. And I think we're still seeing some of it from Northern Virginia and out in Greene County and areas like that can be used as a potential second home, but also something where it could rent well.
But the catch with that is, from the financing standpoint, is that if you have it as a second home, you're technically not supposed to rent it.
You can if you're there for I think it's something. It's not a lot of time. I want to say it's like 100 days.
Okay. Well, okay. So here's a question then, because I just had a client close on the house of a wintergreen, and he was going to rent it out, but it already had a contract on it, like a rental agreement. And so that agreement had to be adhered to for like 60 days after he closed on it. And so the financing in that situation, because it already had that in place, and I don't even know how they found it because it wasn't in the contract, but they did. So he ended up having to switch his loan type and bring more money because of
to investment.
Interesting. Even though it was going to be a second home for him.
That's interesting. If he could prove his usage, I think that was arguable.
Well, he wasn't going to use it for those 60 days. So.
Kevin Yancey, that home is, and you have the exact location. You saw it on maps.
Yeah.
Is it right over Albemarle line?
So it's on the other side of 64. So you got 250, 64, and it's outside of that. So that is about as far as the county is going to go. So how about this? When you're on 64 between Zions and Pantops, and you go through the Louisa, Fluvanna, Albemarle little section there, it's got to be right there at that tipping point.
And I'm not completely positive that part of that property isn't on Albemarle County, because I was trying to look at the plat and then I was trying to overlay the lines. not the entrance.
So he's got it here, 32 plus acres located between Keswick and Zion's. Tim, we're talking your listing here, and we're only doing positive stuff over here. We're giving you positive attention, Tim Carson. Keswick and Zion's Crossroads right there. How would a piece of property that is located in 2 counties, how does taxing work on that? That's a question I have.
You get 2 bills. So
it's 2 different bills?
So this is the crazy part. So I sold a house it was on Poplar Springs Road.
Okay.
So the mailbox was in Fluvanna, but the property was in Albemarle.
So the mailbox is the official address?
Yes.
Okay.
But so their kids were able to go to Albemarle schools, but they paid
a fee to do it.
Fluvanna taxes, and they didn't pay a fee to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though the physical address was in Fluvanna?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So this is a question for both you guys from Mustache Dan Pettit. J-Dubs, if you can go back to...
So the second home days requirement is actually way less than I initially thought. It's like 30 days or less.
If you go the iPad back on there for me, this is from Mustache Dan Pettit for both you guys. Do you guys expect the Lake Monticello homes to continue escalating in price point like they are doing? Do you think the Lake Monticello homes will continue to go up, and do you look in purchasing at the lake due to price points and where they could go? There's a lot of Lake Monticello. This guy, you grew up at the lake, right?
I grew up in Fluvanna.
Oh, in Fluvanna. Okay.
I hate the lake.
Okay.
As a real estate agent, I hate the lake.
Why? Because you're saying the various gates and getting in?
Oh my God.
Is that why?
Yeah, just being a friend and like going to visit your friend that lives in the lake. It's like awesome. Now I'm trapped at going 25.
And the GPS always gives you the wrong.
Yeah.
And
so my take on pricing at the lake is and has been as it's going to cap at a certain point, but you got the properties vary from like a very nice waterfront home to the original ranchers that were built in place in the early 80s.
Yeah, that are like 1,000 square feet.
Yeah,
but the bad plumbing that needs to be replaced and the. Yeah.
Quest Plumbing, you're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your finish your thought here?
So
because they're going pretty high here, the prices.
They are, but it's going to turn into. Now, here's the other thing. So there was a Forbes article this week that we're 4 million units short of rentals. Yeah. So we're going to continue to see 20% increases in rental rates going forward for the foreseeable future. And I don't mean that has nothing to do with rates. That has nothing to do with anything else. That has to do with the fact that we have less rooftops than we do humans who need homes. Now, most of those big increases are being driven by the Sun Belt, Florida, Arizona, those areas that are also being purchased by major investment companies like BlackRock and even smaller ones that BlackRock owns and that sort of thing. But in an area like ours, with the growth of the university and the continued expansion of bringing more people to the area. Like I said, when I went to Fluvanna High School, I graduated with a class of 140 people. Right. I mean, that's just not where we are anymore. But as we continue to grow and people own those houses at the lake, the price is going to go up. At some point, it's going to be capped because investors are going to have a hard time, even with rent increases, not the ones that own now that just refinanced into the 3s for an investment property, or maybe better than that depending on what they did. But you're going to see less investors going out and purchasing at 6% interest to turn around and try to make a break even at rent on a $350,000 rancher at the lake. That's not realistic. But you're going to continue to see people driven to buy single family like primary residence at that price point for some foreseeable future.
In Val, you jump in here. Great take, Scott Morris. This is some ammunition for you guys. Mm-hmm. And Dan, I believe you have a rental at the lake. He says 18% of total homes at Lake Monticello are rented. 18%. That's a lot.
Well, there's
4,300 rooftops at Lake Monticello. The largest subdivision in Central Virginia is Lake Monticello, 4,300. 4,300 times 0.18. We're talking 774 rentals.
That's a lot of rentals.
In one neighborhood. What's your take on all this?
So my issues with the lake are aqua water. It's that. You have no options, and it's its own mortgage payment for your water bill, and
you know about that.
I mean, I know it exists. Yeah, like I've got a bunch of friends. I mean, I grew up out in the area, so a lot of people who did now are property owners in Lake Monticello.
Yeah, and the gates, and a lot of the homes that I have sold in there, or I've shown, or seen, have so much deferred maintenance, and then now they're wanting all this money for them. And I mean, at some point, it's the same as everywhere else right now, right? So we just still don't have a lot of inventory, and there's people that the affordability, it's more affordable at Lake Monticello for what you get, but then you're going to be putting in all these repairs for the home that you might not have expected, because you have to go in with an as-is offer and in order to get something. And so the value, you're losing a lot of your. I always believe that you make your money when you purchase your house. The price you purchase your house for is where you make your money. So I think that. And
it's like planting a tree. The best time to do it was yesterday.
Yeah. Unfortunately. But the next best
sad
time.
Right there. The next best time is tomorrow, right?
Yeah. But it's just, I feel like, not having sellers cover closing costs, which I hate closing costs, because it's just gone. It doesn't go towards the equity in your home. It doesn't go towards really anything but, taxes. So.
It goes back to paying for things like the title company who's doing this work for us, and we're talking about don't discount my realtor fees, don't discount my lender fees.
Your expertise.
I'm saying these all things.
But for a buyer, it's.
He's saying there's a cost of doing business.
Yes. No. But when a buyer isn't, getting those costs covered and they're having to pay that out of their pocket, that's just an additional price that you need to add on to the price of your home. So when you're determining whether this is a good investment or not, like that extra 3%, essentially you've got to tack on to the top of your purchase price and make an educated decision on, is this a good decision? And am I going to be here long enough that this could potentially be a good decision? And like the house in Florida, that first house that I bought, think of when I bought it, 2005. What happened? The market tanked. We lost 75% equity. 75% equity.
That's a big number.
Yeah, that's a big number. It's a Wild West down there.
It took over 10 years for that house to come back.
Yeah.
And in that time, we had tenants that, failed to mention, termites were eating the back half of the house. So $12,000 in repairs.
But you rented them. You rented the spot, so you covered some overhead there.
And
it wasn't a
rate
loss.
Adjusted down.
Yeah, your rate adjusted down. It wasn't all negative.
It was interest only. So that was the other thing.
Got really lucky with that rate adjusting down there.
Yeah. And then our payment was so low because it was interest only, but then it wasn't eating the equity. So it just, we started making additional payments because we got so much higher in rent. But, you just have to make those decisions when you buy the house. So in the worst case scenario, if this happened, then what do I do? And am I comfortable and capable of managing this from Virginia?
Yeah.
Or, wherever you end up going. So.
You would say property management company.
Oh, 100%.
We tried. We went through them.
My big thing is, I've got a friend who is the reason that I bought where I did. He's a street over, and he lives in Hampton, so he drives down. It's 2 hours, but he'll go down to do some Mickey Mouse repair, and I'm like, absolutely not. No, I will pay someone. I'm not driving down to or not to mention if you've got tenants who are like, hey, how come there's no umbrellas? I'm like, have someone else take those phone calls versus me managing the rest of my life and business to be like, well, there typically are. Did you look? I don't know, that sort of thing. So,
but for me, it is my business. So
yeah.
That's the other side of it.
Which is why when we talked earlier, my consideration to do this would be, I would only do it if it's something that I was managing, that I had control of a cleaner, and was within 30 minutes of my house. Yeah. That to me is, and because if not, if I were to do something outside of that, I want somebody else doing it. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Or, there's so many great, with the Airbnb stuff, there's so many great apps. There's an app called Turnover B&B. And so you partner up with, a cleaner that you have gone through everything. Like I want my silly thing that you don't think about. So in the bedrooms when we're making the beds, we have to fold the sheet over the comforter, because if you don't, nobody sleeps under the sheet. It's like they don't know it's there. And so unless so there's like all these little things that, you have to teach your cleaners to do, but that app syncs with Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. And so when a job comes up, they just accept it, or if they can't accept it, it goes to the next cleaner that you have, a partnership with. And so there's ways to really easily manage these properties from afar with all of the apps that have been created, from hospitable.com to Beyond Pricing to Turnover B&B, and just a bunch of different platforms that become that property management company that when a maintenance issue comes up, it will notify them, so you don't have to field those phone calls. But it's just, getting through and learning and developing those relationships from Virginia, if I was in, Nags Head or the Outer Banks, which, takes time.
That would be a challenge.
To do that, so, yeah.
Guys, it was a blast. Seriously. We went 30 minutes over. I just looked at the time for the first time. It's 11:40. Fun stuff. So why don't we close with some final thoughts, a final take for each of you guys. Why don't you go first, Val? Everyone that's watching.
Patience with a sense of urgency. Patience with a sense of urgency in this market, for real. It's just, it'll come up, the perfect house will come along, and you just, it just has to make sense. And you got to think, a lot of times real estate becomes, people see something flashy and they want it, but you have to be smart about it. And just because it has a shiny thing doesn't mean it's the right thing. So listen to your real estate professional, and the rates are great right now. And so I think that if you are thinking about selling your home, definitely sell it, because something will come up. And there's ways to safeguard, like in your contract, that the contract is contingent on you, the seller, finding another acceptable property. So that way you're not going to be left homeless within a time frame. So there's ways to mitigate.
Nicely done. Scott Morris.
Same theme, which is, if you're going through the struggle, if you're out there, if you're a professional who's gone out and shown 20 homes and none of your offers have been accepted, like, just be kind, communicate at a high level, keep making phone calls, keep doing all the things that you do that make you successful to begin with, and things will continue to happen. And for the homeowners out there who go and make the offer for the one, and if it didn't work out, then it wasn't the one. There will be another the one. And it's a roller coaster ride, but at the same time, just continue to grind and go do the things that make you and those around you successful and happy.
And get pre-approved first.
And and call your lender and have that conversation.
First. How about a plug there for Ross Mortgage?
Thank you.
There's a lender to call right there of Scott Morris. Guys, I enjoy this. Seriously.
Definitely.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Good dynamic on this Wednesday, guys, on set here. Judah, thank you for adjusting on the fly with that listing for the viewers and listeners. So those that are asking, and I see a lot of you are, you can find the show in totality anywhere you get your podcasts. We also stream to every social media site known to mankind, and all our programming is archived on ilovecville.com. It's turned into a library of content from influencers and stakeholders and experts around this community. This is the Wednesday edition of Real Talk, guys, on the I Love CVille Network, presented by Ross Mortgage and Scott Morris, and we're very grateful for Valorie for joining us today. We will be back in 45 minutes, guys, with a shorter edition of the I Love CVille show today. Take care. Bravo. Nicely done.